During 1692 and 1693, people in Salem, Massachusetts were being tried and persecuted because they were accused of witchcraft. This series of hearings is known as the Salem Witch Trials. These trials can be used to reveal how fear, along with religious and social factors, can lead to mass hysteria. Reverend Samuel Parris, shown in the picture above, along with his daughter Betty and her cousin Abigail Williams, came to Salem Village in 1689 after Parris was offered a position there. 2 years after their arrival, right before the accusations began, there were many Indian raids and smallpox outbreaks, leaving citizens to look for reasons for these events. During these times, Betty and Abigail sought entertainment. The two girls, along with others from the village, spent time being taught things such as magic, voodoo, fortune-telling, and making witch cakes by Parris's house slave, Tituba. The girls, along with 2 dogs, ate these cakes, and many are familiar with what followed. Following the lessons, the girls all got sick with the same affliction. This was known as the evil hand, and when this affliction went from physical to spiritual, the responsibility for treatment went to the church ministry. Parris said that God was angry in sending destroyers in the form of witches. Other ministers came to Salem, and this is where the trials begin. When these other ministers arrived, all of them, including Parris, agreed idle superstition was not to be permitted, and spectral evidence was admitted in court by those ministers who served as counsel and jurists in the proceedings. The girls would have fits in the courtroom and point to who was responsible. The court documented these proceedings, along with providing arrest warrants such as this one, and other sources for historiographers to analyze. This is a picture of Cotton Mather's The Wonders of the Invisible World. He was an important figure during the trials, along with his brother Increase. Increase tried to argue the principle innocent until proven guilty, but it was seemingly ignored by the court. Cotton, however, supported the trials and the use of spectral evidence, and this encouraged the court's activities. There have been many theories from historiographers as to why these innocent people were being victimized and how these afflictions came to be. According to Professor Franklin G. Mixon, Jr., ergotism, a form of bread poisoning, is a possible medical explanation for these afflictions. Ergotism affected mostly women and children, and symptoms include tingling hands and fingers, hallucinations, mania, psychosis, muscle contractions, and more. These symptoms were all consistent with the actions of the dogs and girls that ate Tituba's witch cake. However, this theory is likely improbable. Using this medical explanation, the professor was able to come up with a possible economic interpretation for the trials. His idea was that the witchcraft episode in Salem successfully employed Puritans to maintain and even perhaps strengthen their church's monopoly and increase church membership. The Puritan Church maintained monopoly-like rights to 3 things during the trials: the interpretation of spectral evidence, the biblical interpretations of witchcraft, and acceptable academic scholarship concerning witchcraft. Therefore, witchcraft in Salem can only be understood in the context of Puritan theology. It was a derivative from crucial assumptions within Puritan beliefs. Other researchers have similar ideas. Boyer and Nissenbaum, authors of Salem Possessed, believe that the ministers exploited the young girls for personal and corporate gain. Parris had been experiencing difficulty in filling the village meeting house for weekly worship and persuading the congregation to pay his salary. However, during the witchcraft mania, villagers turned to him, so church attendance increased. Along with that, Boyer and Nissenbaum also believed that there was factionalism in Salem Village. The authors relied on a tax assessment from December 1695 in Salem. Petitions were signed throughout the village to either support or not support Parris. Linking these to the tax record, they found that the average tax of anti-Parris villagers was 4.4 shillings higher than pro-Parris. A professor named Richard Latner analyzes Boyer and Nissenbaum's idea. His analysis revealed that the pro-Parris faction was more strongly linked to membership in the village church and was distinctly less affluent than the anti-Parris opposition. However, he states that clearly only one tax list isn't as effective as using multiple lists. Benjamin C. Ray, another professor, also supports the idea of factionalism. Aside from analyzing documents such as tax records, we can look at a map of Salem Village. In his analysis, Ray notes that most accusers and defenders lived on opposite sides of the village. The poor farmers or accusers lived on the west side, while the victims or more prosperous members lived in the east. The factionalism of houses and taxes weren't the only things divided during the witch mania. Historians in the 90s recognized Parris's sermons in which he divided the village between chosen and wicked and unconverted. This heightened the conflict between church members and the majority of those who refused to join. Historians shifted perspectives from analyzing why the trials happened to discussing who to blame for witchcraft. The first observers blamed the devil. Cotton Mather believed that the devil broke into their holy community with the help of possessed mortals. Robert Califf, a contemporary, insisted the ministers encouraged the witch mania to drive people back to church. Other historians have blamed the girls who made charges of witchcraft. They also conveyed that the ministers must share the blame because they took the girls seriously. Julian Franklin, an author, said the girls were only too glad to wield the power thus conferred upon them. They knew what they were doing. One historian, named Chadwick Hansen, holds that witchcraft was practiced in Massachusetts. This was unlike most other researchers' interpretations. He argues that the people believed that the devil was operating through them and that the afflicted were suffering from hysteria. The theories that were mentioned previously, along with others, usually fall into three general models. Witchcraft serves as a way to explain life's misfortunes, it operates as a form of social control, or it functions as a release of social tension. The Salem witch trials have been used as a symbol in American culture ever since these events occurred. This political cartoon is an example from the Civil War. The trials can be used as a warning of the consequences of excess passions in politics, and new research is still being done today to come up with even more new ideas.